A knight sat on the Iron Throne with blood on his sword. He was 20 years old. He wore the white cloak of the King's Guard, and the king he had been sworn to protect lay dead at his feet, throat cut, the Wildfire command still wet on his lips. No one came to thank him. When Eddard Stark walked into the throne room hours later, he did not see a hero. He saw a boy sitting on a dead man's chair, and he judged him for it. That judgment lasted a lifetime. But to understand why Jaime Lannister killed his king, you have to go back further, to a tourney and a crown of blue roses. Welcome to Westeros Within, where we journey into forgotten ages, hidden legends, and ancient mysteries. This is Blood of the Dragon, Episode 17, Robert's Rebellion, When Love Destroyed a Dynasty. The tourney at Harrenhal was the greatest gathering the realm had seen in a generation. Every great house sent their champions. Every lord and lady came to watch. The fields below the ruined towers were filled with colour and laughter and the sound of lances breaking. And beneath it all, something was wrong. Aerys had come. The Mad King, paranoid and fraying, had not left the Red Keep in years. He came to Harrenhal because Varys whispered that Rhaegar was using the tourney to gather lords against him. Whether that was true or not, the king's presence turned a celebration into something colder. Rhaegar won the joust. He was the finest knight of his generation, silver-haired, beautiful, and burdened with something no one else could see. When the time came to crown the Queen of Love and Beauty, he rode past his own wife. He rode past Elia Martell, the woman who had given him 2 children, who sat in the gallery with the court watching. And he placed the crown of blue winter roses in the lap of Lyanna Stark. The girl was betrothed to Robert Baratheon. She was the sister of Brandon Stark. She was a daughter of the North, promised to another, and a prince of the blood had just declared her the most beautiful woman in the realm in front of 10,000 witnesses. Some say Lyanna wept, some say she smiled. What everyone agrees on is that the world changed in that moment. Not long after, Lyanna disappeared. The official story: Rhaegar abducted her, took her south, imprisoned her. The Prince of Dragonstone, driven by lust or madness, stole another man's betrothed. The truth, as we know it now, was different. They married in secret. They loved each other. But the truth does not matter when the lie has already started a war. Brandon Stark rode to King's Landing in fury. He stood before the Red Keep and shouted for Rhaegar to come out and die. Aerys had him arrested, and then he summoned their fathers. Lord Rickard Stark came south expecting a trial. He arrived in armour, as was his right, demanding trial by combat. Aerys named fire as his champion. They suspended Rickard from the ceiling in his armour and lit a pyre beneath him. They put Brandon in a strangling device, a leather cord attached to a sword just beyond his reach. As his father roasted alive above him, Brandon strangled himself trying to reach the blade that might have cut him free. The Lord of Winterfell cooked inside his own steel. His heir choked on his own desperation. And the Mad King laughed. Then Aerys sent a raven to Jon Arryn, demanding the heads of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark. Jon Arryn raised his banners instead. The rebellion had begun. Robert called the Stormlands. Ned rallied the North. Jon Arryn united the Vale. Hoster Tully joined after securing marriage pacts. Ned would marry Catelyn. Jon would marry Lysa. The alliance was sealed in blood and promises. The war moved quickly. 3 battles at Summerhall. Robert fought and won them all in a single day. At the Battle of Ashford, he lost, the only defeat of the rebellion, and fled into the Stoney Sept. Jon Connington, Aerys's new hand, hunted him through the streets, house by house, door by door. The bells of the Sept rang in alarm. Robert hid, in a brothel, some say, in an inn, in the bed of a woman who did not know or care that she was sheltering the future king. And when Ned arrived with the Northern Army, the Battle of the Bells turned into a rout. Connington was exiled. Aerys burned the next hand alive for suggesting surrender, and then everyone marched to the Trident. The rebel army and the royal army met at the crossing of the Green Fork. 40,000 rebels, 35,000 loyalists, the largest battle the realm had seen since the dance. Rhaegar led the royal army. He wore black armor with rubies on the breastplate, fashioned in the shape of a three-headed dragon. He had spent months at the Tower of Joy with Lyanna while the realm burned, and now he had come to end it. Robert found him in the river. The two men fought in the shallows, the prince and the lord, the silver hair and the black, the ruby dragon and the warhammer. Around them, men died in the hundreds. The water ran red. Robert's hammer found Rhaegar's chest. The rubies scattered into the river. They sank into the silt. For years afterward, people came to that ford to search for them. They called it the Ruby Ford. Rhaegar fell, and with him fell the Targaryen dynasty. What happened next was not war. It was slaughter. Tywin Lannister, who had sat at Casterly Rock and watched the rebellion without lifting a sword, arrived at King's Landing with 12,000 men. He came as a friend. He came to help. Grand Maester Pycelle convinced Aerys to open the gates, and Tywin sacked the city. While the Lannister army put King's Landing to the sword, two of Tywin's men climbed the steps of Maegor's Holdfast: Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, and Amory Lorch. They found Princess Elia Martell with her children, Rhaenys, a girl of 3 who hid under the bed, Aegon, a babe still at his mother's breast. What they did to those children, and to the woman who held them, the histories record in detail that no script should repeat. What matters is that when the killing was done, the bodies were wrapped in Lannister crimson and laid at the foot of the Iron Throne as a gift. Tywin called it proof of loyalty. Robert called it justice. Ned Stark called it murder. And the fracture between them would never heal. But before the sack, before the gates opened, before Tywin ever arrived, there was one more scene in the Red Keep. Aerys had given the order. Beneath King's Landing, in tunnels and cellars and buried chambers, the pyromancers had hidden caches of wildfire, enough to burn the entire city, 500,000 people. "Burn them all!" the king screamed. "If I cannot have the city, no one will. Let Robert be king of ash and bone." His hand, Rossart, a pyromancer, not a lord, moved to carry out the order. And Jaime Lannister, the youngest member of the Kingsguard, the boy who had been knighted by Arthur Dayne himself, the son Tywin had been forced to give away, stood in the throne room and made a choice. He killed Rossart first. Then he walked to the Iron Throne, where Aerys was screaming, and he drove his sword through the king's back. "Burn them all," Aerys whispered as he died. Jaime sat on the throne and waited. He waited for someone to come and ask what had happened. He waited for someone to understand. Ned Stark walked in and saw a Kingslayer. The realm agreed. For the rest of his life, Jaime Lannister carried the name like a scar. The man who had saved 500,000 lives was despised for it by every lord, every knight, every singer who told the tale. Because the realm does not reward the knight who breaks his oath, even when the oath would have killed them all. Far to the south, in the Mountains of Dawn, another story was ending. 3 members of the Kingsguard stood before a round tower: Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning; Gerald Hightower, the White Bull; Oswell Went. They had not fought at the Trident. They had not defended the king. They were here, guarding a tower in the middle of nowhere, and they would not say why. Ned came with 6 companions, 7 against 3. "And now it begins," Ned said. "No," Arthur Dayne answered. "Now it ends." They fought. 5 of Ned's men died. Arthur Dayne fell only because Howland Reed, the quiet Crannogman, the man no one watched, intervened at the last moment. Ned climbed the tower. He found Lyanna in a bed of blood. She was dying. Childbirth or fever or both. The details blur in the grief. She held a newborn boy, dark-haired, stark-looking. A child the realm could never know was a prince. "Promise me, Ned." Those were her last words. He promised. He took the boy south. He told the realm the child was his bastard, born of some tavern girl during the war. He named him Jon Snow, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, the child of ice and fire, hidden in plain sight for 17 years, raised in Winterfell, never knowing who he was, the prince that was promised, or the boy whose birth cost everything. So tell me this. Jaime killed a king to save a city, and the world called him a monster. Ned lied about a boy to keep a promise, and the world called him honourable. Which one of them was right? Write it in the comments. And if you want to hear how this dynasty ends, not in war, not in fire, not on the Iron Throne, but in a funeral pyre on the Dothraki Sea, where a silver-haired girl walks into the flames and 3 dragons are born from stone. Subscribe to Westeros Within and join me for the final chapter. Because next time, we meet the last dragon, and she will not burn,